Hey everybody, well, before we get into today's devotional, I want to give you a number to think about. And that number is 124. 124 days. That's how long it will be between our last in-person service on March the 8th and our first service back together again on July the 11th. That's right, we are opening our doors in about 3 weeks. Friends, 124 days is a long time. It's over a third of the year. So I got to say a huge thank you for your faithfulness. I want to thank God for protecting His church. Friends, since Easter, we have had nearly 60,000 people participate with us each weekend online and on TV. In addition to that, between 4,000 and 8,000 of you are tuning into a service on demand during the week. God has been moving now more than ever, and we believe will continue to do so. He will continue to do so in new ways as we begin. So the process of opening up our physical campuses begins July the 11th. Now, I'm sure you have a million questions about what things will look like when we return, and we will be answering all those questions in the next few days and weeks to come. We know from the survey that some of you simply can't wait to gather together again in person. And again, that day, that weekend is going to be July 11th and the 12th. Now, for those of you who don't live near one of our physical campuses, or if you aren't quite ready to meet in a large group yet, that's okay. That's not a problem. Rest assured, if you're still planning on joining us from home, we're still going to be online every weekend with the same excellent experience you've come to expect from these past 3 months. Our teams right now are hard at work, though, preparing all of our spaces, all of our campuses, all of our environments to be as clean and safe as possible for you and for your family. And as I've always said, the church has never been closed, but we finally have the opportunity to meet again in person starting July 11th and 12th. And more information will be coming in the days ahead. So let's get into, if you're excited about that, give me some thumbs up, give me some hearts. We're so excited to see you guys again. Let's get into the devotional today. It was October 31st, 1517, a little-known monk named Martin Luther walked up to the Castle Church in Wittenberg, Germany. In those days, church doors served as a community bulletin board. He posted a piece of paper on the door attacking the practice of indulgences that had crept into the church. Forgiveness was no longer a free gift to be received, but now it was something to be purchased. So Martin Luther paid a price for staying up for the truth. He was excommunicated from the church, but that one act sparked the Protestant Reformation. October 31st, 1517 was a defining moment. Friends, defining moments are that moment in time that everything changes. It's that moment in time when you can look back and say, I am who I am today in part because of what I decided to do in that moment of time. Well, last week when we had the devotional, we looked at the defining moment in Peter's life when Jesus asked him to cast out his nets in the deep water. Now, you've probably slept since then, so let me recap it for you. Peter is a professional fisherman in the story, and Jesus is nothing more than a carpenter, right? And Peter's got to be thinking to himself, what does he know about fishing these waters? I'll tell you what he knows. He knows jack squat about fishing these waters. That's what I would have been thinking. When Jesus tells Peter to fish out in the deep water, Peter knows you don't go out in the deep water to fish. His nets only go down so far, and the fish he's trying to catch will be swimming lower than the nets could reach. In Peter's mind, this is a stupid request, one of the dumbest things he's ever heard. But I love Peter's response. You remember this? Even though what Jesus is asking him to do doesn't make any sense, he looks at Jesus and says, because you say so, I'll do it. I love that. I want to be the kind of person when Jesus asks me to do anything, even if it doesn't make sense, I want to be the person that says, I'll do it. There were 2 women who entered an apartment elevator in New York, and before the doors closed, a man got in leading a Doberman pinscher. He said, sit! And without a single word, the 2 women sat down right on the elevator floor. I want to be like those 2 women. Whatever God tells me to do, that's what I want to do. That's what I must do. I have to quit playing spiritual games and be obedient to what he asks, even when I don't like it, even when I don't want to do it, even when it doesn't make any sense. So Peter takes his nets and he drops them, right? And where Jesus tells him to drop them. And the Bible says he caught such an enormous amount of fish that he had to call another boat over to help him bring the fish back to the shore. Needless to say, Peter's never seen anything like this before in his life. And when he gets back to the shore, Peter does a curious thing. The Bible says he fell at Jesus' feet and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." Jesus looks at Simon Peter and says, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you're going to catch men." Now, you might not understand the significance of what's going on when Jesus calls these men to follow him, because Jesus is giving them the opportunity of a lifetime. In the first century in Jerusalem, it was a big deal to follow a rabbi. When a Jewish child was just 6 years old, they would go to school for the first time and they would learn about God from the local rabbi. And by the time a child was 10 years old, they would have the first 5 books of the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, all 5 books completely memorized. By age 10, a lot of kids didn't make the grade and they flunked out because memorizing 5 books of the Bible word for word would be difficult. By age 14, the top of the class had memorized the entire Old Testament. By this time, there were only a few kids that remained. Everyone else had given up and gone back to the family business. The remaining students would apply to a rabbi, hoping that they would be chosen to learn under them. And if the rabbi thought the young man was worthy, he would ask him to come and follow him. And then the student would follow the rabbi everywhere he went. Even if the rabbi went to the bathroom, they followed him in there just in case he might say something that they didn't want to miss. Well, Jesus sees these young men fishing. And why are they fishing? It's because they flunked out. They didn't make the grade. They didn't make the cut. They didn't have what it took to be the best of the best. So when Jesus asked them to follow him, Jesus is offering the opportunity of a lifetime. All right, can we be honest? Let's just face it for a second. We've all flunked out too. None of us are worthy to be used by God. There's nothing special about us. We're just one person in the midst of almost 7 billion people on planet Earth. We're a mist, a vapor that appears for a little while and then it's gone. What makes our lives significant is not our little accomplishments that are here today and gone tomorrow. What makes our lives significant is that there's a God who knows us by our name. There's a God that believes in us, that loves us, and wants to do life together with us. Jesus looks at Peter with a smile on his face and says, "Do you think that was fun, catching those fish? How about you follow me and we change this world together, one life at a time?" It's as if Jesus looks at Peter and says, "Come on, man. There's more to life than just fishing. There's something greater you can give your life to. Peter, you can spend the rest of your days fishing for perch, or you can fish for people. You can live for the temporary, or you can live for the eternal. It's your call." There will come a day when all of us have to decide what's worth giving our life to. And I mean all of our life, don't I? Jesus wants every aspect of our lives, and we can understand that, right? Kyle Idleman says, imagine it this way, and this is strictly pretend, okay? So don't send me them angry faces. Let's imagine this week you walk into the restaurant and you see me sitting at a table having a candlelit dinner with a woman who's not my wife. And you come up and you confront me, "Who's this woman and what are you doing?" And I respond, "Don't worry about it. I'm on a date with this beautiful lady tonight, but my wife knows she always comes first." Well, you walk away angry and disgusted. You decide that someone needs to tell my wife, and so you call her and you break the news. When I come home from my date, what do you think her response is going to be? I imagine my wife meets me at the door and says, "Hi, honey, did you have a nice time on your date?" Do you imagine that? Then she comes over and gives me a big kiss and says, "I don't mind you seeing other people as long as I'm still the most important to you." That would never happen. Never. As soon as I walked in that door from that date, I would fear for my life. If my wife heard me about eating at McDonald's with a man who kind of looked like a woman, I'd be in trouble. Why? Because she loves me. Her refusal to share my affection doesn't indicate that she's insecure or possessive. It improves her to be devoted and to be loving. Jesus looks at Peter and says, "What's it going to be? Fish for perch or fish for people?" And look at what Peter does. So they pulled up their boat up on the shore, left everything, and they followed him. I was reading about a strange baptism practice that was allowed by the church when the Knights of the Templar were being baptized. When the church would baptize one of the knights, they would baptize with their swords. But they wouldn't take their swords underwater with them. Instead, they would hold their swords up out of the water while the rest of them would be immersed. It was the knight's way of saying to Jesus, you can have control of me, but you can't have my sword. Jesus, I'm all yours, but who I am and what I do on the battlefield, how I use this sword, that's not part of the deal. If that was still in practice today, we might not hold up a sword, but my guess is that many of us would hold up a wallet. Some of us would hold up a remote control, others a laptop, maybe your smartphone. Many people say to Jesus, I'll follow you. Anything and everything I have, I give it to you. But Jesus points to what you're hiding behind your back and says, what about that? Peter didn't hold anything back from Jesus. He left it all behind. And it was quite a price to pay, wasn't it? He left the family business behind. He left the great catch of fish behind. He left the biggest payday of his life behind. And why did he do it? Because Jesus is worth it. Let's not lose sight of the fact that Jesus left more than just a little behind for you and me. Jesus left heaven behind for us. He left the praise and worship of heaven, the beauty and the grandeur of heaven to rescue us from ourselves. He also left his blood behind for us. The cross was a bloody scene. His body was broken. His hands and feet were nailed. A crown of thorns was placed upon his head. He was beaten beyond recognition. Jesus left his blood behind for us. What have you ever been asked to leave behind that was so costly as what he left behind? And he did it all willingly. He did it voluntarily. He made his choice. How about you? It's defining moment time. Friends, I look forward to seeing you online this weekend or on TV. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in person for many of you July 11th and the 12th. Have a great day.